Hey everyone, it's Mallo, your host of IDNTECO After Dark and the creative director here for IDNTECO. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that this episode is brought to you in part by Gamers Heaven and their newest location just north of Seattle, Washington. There, in a family-friendly and welcoming environment, you can play tabletop or video games, read manga, or just relax with friends and sample some amazing drinks from their boba tea bar. If you want to learn more, log on to gamersheavenseattle.com to see hours and location. Now let's get on with the show. Hello, Fringers. The following podcast may not be suitable for all ages. Listener discretion is advised. Oh, hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode of IDNTECO After Dark, a live podcast where we talk about video games, TV, music, movies, and more. My name is Mallo. I am your host for tonight, and joining me, as he always does, is my co-conspirator, Alex the Humanoid. Alex, welcome, sir.
What's going on, everybody? It's been we changed topics like mid-stride because everything changed this week. Look.
Yep.
We'll
get to that here in a second. Joining us on the panel tonight, you know him from the RPG Academy podcast. You also know him from Chaos Incorporated right here on this channel. A good friend of the show. It's Caleb.
Howdy, cats and kittens.
Yeah, there it is. The return of the iconic welcome message.
Well, people started stealing it, and then it just wasn't fun. So bringing it back now.
You got it where you could have the solo show tonight with us because you knew we weren't going to crib on it. I like it. All right, that's cool.
That's true.
I like that.
That's true.
I like it. Thank you for joining us tonight. As always, if you want to support the show and you've got a Prime subscription, we're right here on Twitch. So drop a little Prime sub for us. Bits, follows, all that good stuff goes to support the show. Also, we are now affiliated with Hero Forge. So if you like to make custom tabletop miniatures for your D&D, Shadowrun, Cyberpunk, or I don't know, an IDNTECO game, because they have a lot of new sci-fi and cyberpunk things there. The link is now in the description. It'll be in the title here on YouTube as well when you watch it back later. Go give those a look every time you purchase or even sign up for the subscription service, which actually gives you a lot of great STL files if you are into that kind of thing about printing your 3D miniatures at home. Or if you're like me and you will need to make characters really quick and you need tokens for like virtual tabletop games and stuff, that's all part of the subscription now. So go use that link, check it out. And support the show. You can support the show with that. It's one of our first sponsors. We've been talking about people sponsoring this show for years, and Hero Forge is the first one to come through. So thank you so much for helping us out. Thank you very much, for tuning in and helping us out from there. So also, if you want to learn more about the show and you want to support or jump into it, go to www.playidentico.com. There you can find our core rulebook, you can find merch, you can find swag, you can find freebies, all the good stuff, and learn more about the game and the world that this podcast is kind of grown out of. We play the actual RPG on Mondays. We do the podcast here on Wednesdays. You can also check our YouTube channel, youtube.com, and just search IDNTECO, where you can find Angel City Stories and all of the past episodes of this here. The IDNTECO After Dark podcast, as well as all of the past episodes of Chaos Inc. And if you're not following Chaos Inc., let me tell you, you are missing some spicy meatballs on that one. That's getting good. It's getting good. And it's also there's only 15 episodes up currently, so it's not a whole lot to catch up to. So I promise you can make it and catch up with it quickly. But in those 15 episodes, a lot of stuff has gone down, and it's really good. So.
Most importantly, a lot of discussion about clothing and a lot of discussion about food.
Yep. If our game is known for anything, it will be the food, especially.
Very important.
Yep. We actually did a one shot with Caleb and some other folks a long time ago, and that centered heavily around food as well. And then we did, So it's all over the place. Tamales, yes. Yes, a lot of tamales in that one too. Maybe the Chaos Inc. crew will get on the tamale train here soon enough. We'll see. We shall
bring
see.
back the deconstructed grilled cheese.
Yeah.
For the hardcore fans that know where that comes from.
Yep.
At one point, you used like powdered peanut butter.
Yeah. It was a cooking challenge. You got to rise to the task. What chef throws at you, you just got to roll with it.
There you go.
It's our own version of Iron Chef, man. I tell you what.
Cyber Chef.
So tonight, if you can't tell by the stream title, tonight our main story is, we were going to talk about some other stuff, but our main story tonight is now talking about Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard.
3 times fast.
Yeah, right? I even rehearsed that in my head before we started the show. It came down this week. First off, it came down this week that Activision had let off and punished several folks as part of the fallout of their discrimination settlements, and basically Bobby Kotick and the S team being a bunch of jerks. To put it lightly, there's a very toxic work environment, and some information had come out about that this week. And turns out a day later, we find out why so many people were let go and punished is because they were clearing the way for Microsoft to finish an acquisition of Activision and Blizzard for $68.7 billion with the B dollars. That is one of the, I believe, one of the most expensive video game acquisitions outside of getting a Gen 1 Atari, or something like that. Terrible joke. Anyways, moving on. Basically, as of press time, as of this, the acquisition was just announced earlier this week. It's got to go through a year's worth of regulation, review, and things like that, not just here in the United States, but actually worldwide, where outside of the US, it's getting a little tough for companies to be merging and doing acquisitions and things like that. And we'll get into that as we go throughout the show. But first off, just kind of want to get some very, chat, chime in as we go. It's an interactive podcast, but for our panelists here tonight, I just want to get some very basic kind of reactions and thoughts to this particular merger that's happening. Caleb, why don't you go first?
Yeah.
I mean, no one needs that much money. No one deserves that much money. This is ridiculous. I am definitely out of the loop on all of this stuff, so I've been learning about it just as kind of the headlines have been dropping, but it's just bonkers. I understand why they're doing it. Obviously, they just want to consolidate power, pay off a lot of people, use it to cover up some stuff probably, but geez.
Yeah.
That much money is just mind-boggling, and it's stupid.
That's more than most, I think, per capita GDP in the world. Let's see.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex. I'm going to look up per capita GDP in the world and see how much.
I think it's probably more than a large portion of the planet. I was surprised, and I'm actually doing some digging right now, just to double check to make sure I'm not wrong with this. So I was surprised by the announcement, and here's why. Activision is still under open investigation. Microsoft is in the tech space, and I think Mallo will back me up on this, considered one of the more conservative players in the tech space. In the tech space, Microsoft is grandpa, okay? Microsoft is the okay boomer of tech companies, okay? That's who they are. And so Satya Nadella and Microsoft making this big of a deal for a video game company that, granted, is extremely profitable, but is still under active SEC investigation, hasn't finished all their stuff with the state of California or the federal government on the discrimination side of the things. That surprised me. And then what surprised me more was that they weren't buying it at a discount. As of the moment the deal was announced, Activision stock was trading at about, hang on, we'll pull it up, was trading at $65 a share. So Microsoft was offering $30 a share above market price for the acquisition.
Yep.
If they were like, look, we're going to come in here at like 52, 55, I get it. Or even at share cost. A $30 premium on Activision in the state that they're in right now,
well,
surprised me.
Well, so here's the thing, is that Activision Blizzard settled the lawsuit for $18 million recently.
Now, but not the SEC one.
Yeah, but I think the SEC one is going to pull off now because of that. Because the thing about the SEC one is the Securities and Exchange Commission portion of it, they can look into certain pieces, but if Microsoft comes in and says, hey, we're just going to take it over and probably going to clean house in one meeting, the SEC will be like, okay, prove it. And then we might figure something out later, because it will technically be a different company at that point. And so, it's an interesting kind of like pull for this, because, the EEOC stuff with California is settled, with a paycheck, because the judge denied the intervention to the settlement.
Oh, they denied the appeal?
They denied the appeal, and so the 18 million went through. So basically 18 million of that 68 billion just basically went to pay off their fines, is essentially what happened, is what it will, once it goes out in the wash. So like, it's kind of a steal.
Real quick, I want to answer tip in chat.
Okay.
Microsoft has been through antitrust before. Does anyone remember the 90s? Yes. Now here's the deal. This is gonna sail, at least in the US, it's gonna sail through regulatory approval. This is nothing like Microsoft's antitrust issues that they were found guilty of in the 90s. They're buying Activision. Now, if they turned around and in a month tried to buy EA, that would probably catch the regulators, and they'd probably go, nope, sorry, you can't do that. The video game industry is just dispersed enough to where this kind of an acquisition isn't going to put them in control of a level of market share that's going to get the feds to stop it. Okay. Even when you look at other similar like acquisitions in other media, like the Disney acquisition of Fox, right? When the feds went in, they said, okay, the only thing you can't have is Fox Sports because you have ESPN. So no, you can't buy that. That has to be sold to somebody else, right?
And they broke them up.
And I think News Division ended up keeping a bunch of it, because that was the one piece of Fox that Disney wanted no part of, was Fox News. They were like, no, we don't want that. You can keep it.
Say what you will about the House of Mouse, but that was a solid choice.
They're just like, no.
Yeah, they make up enough stuff in regular Disney movies. They don't need Fox News.
Right, and at least in the Disney movies is more believable.
And so Strag brings up, most purchases are at 5 years worth of profit. This was less than that. So looking at their last 10K, it's actually way less than that on 5. And usually these are 10 years. These are generally not a 5-year. These are generally a 10-year ROI. And even on a 10-year ROI, going at the last 10K they filed, they're not going to recoup the cash. This is about controlling certain companies and certain IPs, which are worth more money.
Yeah. And the thing that I was talking with somebody earlier today about it. The big thing about Activision Blizzard is they do a ton of merchandising. It's a ton of merchandising, especially around Overwatch and World of Warcraft, where they've got a lot of cute things, and Hearthstone. So it's very interesting when you kind of come to that whole place of what Microsoft could be doing there. And I think it's interesting that, people kind of go, well, oh, it's going to be a monopoly and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, Electronic Arts is out there. Epic Games is still out there. And Tencent technically owns them, or owns enough of it. Ubisoft.
Nintendo's still out there.
Nintendo and Sony, which I was looking up Sony's studios, or is now PlayStation Studios. So I get with Microsoft's purchase of this, right? Their Xbox game studios are basically Rare, Double Fine, World's Edge, In Exile, Turn 10, 343, who just released Halo, Coalition, Mojang, Undead, Obsidian, Compulsion, Ninja Theory, Playground, and the Xbox Game Studio publishing sort of team that'll roll up to them. Then under the Bethesda ZeniMax, basically, you've got Bethesda, IDNTECO, Machine Games, Arcane, ZeniMax Online, Alpha Dog, and Roundhouse. Now with Activision Blizzard, you get Treyarch, Raven, High Noon, Infinity Ward, Toys for Bob, Beanox, Sledgehammer, Blizzard, and then the big one, which I kind of think more than anything was the cherry on top of the cake. They now will own Candy Crush and all of the mobile games that King creates that have basically set the standard in microtransactions on iOS and Android platforms.
What's interesting about the King one is it accounts for, a reasonable size of income. But when you look at it as part of the whole, it's not huge. I was actually surprised, and actually Mallo was talking about this on the pre-show, and looking at the 10K, Mallo was right. It's Call of Duty. Yep. Call of Duty blew World of Warcraft out of the fucking water.
Yep.
By factors of 10. I agree with the chat. I think part of it is padding out Game Pass. I think when the acquisition is done, every WoW account will be a Game Pass account.
I would be okay with that because I have gone, and I will go on the record here as well to say that the minute that Bobby Kotick is no longer involved in Activision Blizzard, I might go back and play World of Warcraft, assuming they can turn the damn storyline around. I miss that game. I miss playing an MMO that is actually well designed, at least. I don't care for Call of Duty. I mean, it's fine as a twerker type kind of game, but I think it's more along the lines of looking at your Call of Duties and stuff like that. Halo was not the big splash that they were hoping it would be. They did not do a very good job with the in-game skin system and things like that. Don't get me wrong. I actually enjoy playing the hell out of Halo right now because it's back to the old Halo. It's good, but it's back to the old Halo, which means it's, your best stuff was back in college with a 12-pack sitting and doing split screen with your buddies. That was the best times of Halo, around Halo 2, online now it's a big different type of game. It might be a late Saturday night kind of thing. Call of Duty, man, is the league. They've got, because the other thing about this is that not only do they have Call of Duty, they'll have Call of Duty League, they'll have the Overwatch League, the Hearthstone tournaments. They have all of that stuff that'll be coming around, because at that point that puts them in direct competition with the other little Bellevue company that happens to have a valve coming out of the back of a bald guy's head. That still owns Dota and the Dota International and how big of a thing that still is, right? You've got these centralized kind of places that are doing a lot of business, and assuming that the world opens back up, that's a if at this point, not a when. There's going to be a lot of changes and updates that are going to happen there. And I'm interested to see how they move forward with CDL, with OWL, and start to make more of a esports league push. Cause Xbox had not had that. They've partnered with Madden and EA and done all these kind of things, but
Halo was the closest they got, and it's kind of died off. I don't know. Do you think, Caleb, I'm curious about your opinion. Do you think this is good or bad for the industry with one of the powerhouses taking somebody who obviously was running into the crapper? We all know that WoW's been tanking for a couple of years now.
They lose a lot of people at WoW.
WoW Classic helped them for a minute, and then it kind of that was it. It was a minute. So I'm curious what your thoughts are.
So I think ultimately it's probably going to be a good thing. I think all of the corporate structure and what they're doing to get out of doing other things and what they're consolidating is probably pretty shady. But that's because everything corporate is pretty shady. But if we're talking about the positive impact on gamers, on the industry, on the end product users, I think we're probably going to see some good stuff coming out of it. I feel like a lot of this is going to become like that unified experience that is becoming a very trendy kind of topic, a very trendy way to pitch things. I feel like we're probably going to see some of that more unified presentations of, okay, you can play the game and then you can socially interact and then you can do things on mobile. At the end of the day, I think they're trying to show the average gamer, the average user, that we, Microsoft, will deliver everything you want from playing the game and socializing about the game and that kind of thing. They're like Disney did. We're just that entertainment conglomerate. They're trying to become that gaming conglomerate.
So button hooking off that full scale integration stuff like that. Do you think this pushes us? Because I've been watching this for a while and I've been waiting. Do you think this gets us further and further down the road of we're not going to own games anymore? You're going to have.
100%.
We haven't owned games in fucking.
We don't own.
10
We don't own that
years.
stuff now.
Yeah.
I buy a few games a year. Like I bought New
No,
World.
you
right?
license those games.
I lease New
if
World.
you go back and read the agreement that you paid to Steam or whatever, you have licensed those games. You have not purchased a thing. Board games are the only times you actually own anything.
I have discs for a PS5.
That don't
My
work
point-
if they don't want you to.
It's true. My thing is does this push us further away from? Because even now, like you can walk into a Target and buy a Switch game, right? Are we just going away from we're going to own games? Everything's just going to get added to Microsoft Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, and eventually Steam will come out with their version of.
Steam's
Game
tried,
Pass.
but they need to go hire some more people from Amazon or Microsoft that can actually build hardware to support. They've got the PC market, but
But like you said, Mallo, the game doesn't work if they don't want you to work it.
Yeah.
Whether you buy the physical cartridge or disc at Target, you still have to connect to online at some point. There's still going to be a patch. And if company X decides, well, we don't want you to play this game unless you have this account or unless you have this subscription service, they can throttle it back. They can completely shut it down. They can stop carrying it or providing services or updates, or they can just make it a lousy game experience. And that's 100% where we're going. All entertainment is going to be that licensing of temporary usage.
Yeah. Here's a great example of that actually crosses over to the board game market. So, Pandemic is one of the top selling board games pre-COVID, at least. I don't know what it's like during COVID. Alex, you're much closer to those numbers than I am when it comes to it. But it has been removed from Steam at the request of the publisher. Pandemic, the digital rights were recently purchased, I believe. And if you bought a copy of it off of Steam, you're just shit out of luck. If you have it downloaded now, you're good to go, but you can no longer download it from Steam, even if you've purchased a copy of it. Now, I don't know if that means you're going to be able to come back and get that later on or what, because all of the rights management and things like that come along with owning an IP, and Lord knows I know all about that. Who knows? You could just be SOL if you owned a copy of that. And I own a couple of board games in digital format, especially on my phone, because it's fun to play while you're traveling or doing whatever. Yeah. And those things come in and out of iOS store all the time. And there's a big, court decision that'll be coming, regulatory decision at least, coming down, especially it'll probably come from Europe first and then in the United States, of whether the iOS and Android app stores can be walled gardens, or if they have to accept multiple other payments. It's
the Europeans have been
slowly
pushing
crumbling. Like
Yeah.
like certain things you can start to do third party payments and all like that, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to appease the regulators here soon. So I'm interested to see how all of that's going to work in the next couple of weeks. But to exactly your point, Caleb, if the publisher of the game doesn't want you to play it anymore, even if you bought it, they can just pull it, because Pandemic's one of those ones where you can play single player, but you can also play multiplayer. So if they just cut off access to the servers, which has happened a ton for all the older games that a lot of us boomers like to play, like the servers just go away and you can't play it anymore. And
Well,
you know,
and that's I actually had this discussion in relation to D&D with somebody at the store this weekend, where they were like, oh yeah, I've just been buying all my books on D&D Beyond. I said, that's gonna be great until D&D Beyond's gone, right? Because eventually it's gonna tank, right? Or they're just gonna stop supporting it, and then what?
Yeah, that was whatever D&D Beyond was called for 4th edition.
yeah,
That's exactly
that
what we
came
saw.
on a disc, and you could download it, and it was a program you ran locally on your hard drive.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, but it was the exact same thing. You could have all your character sheets. It was a builder, which you pretty much needed because 4th edition was ridiculous in how much text you needed. But yeah, as soon as they moved to 5th edition, 100%, you can still play every old edition of D&D forever. But if you only ever bought it digitally, it's gone.
Chat says the disc was for 3.0.
I've got the books over there, but I can't do it online.
Yeah.
Well, and this comes down to GW and things like that. The one credit I will give the board game or the video game industry over the board game industry and the analog industry is they have figured out that software patches, version change, that shit's free. Like once you roll, like we're in, right? The tabletop industry hasn't quite gotten there yet. I'm curious what's going to happen with that. Let's go back to EA.
Well, and I kind of want to ask from that perspective here. So, given the list of companies that I mentioned to Microsoft earlier, and the other companies that you were just mentioning right there, Alex, about EA and stuff like that, it kind of feels a little bit like Microsoft is finally a player in the space. Because if you look at what Microsoft had to what Microsoft is now getting, and compare it to PlayStation's group, like PlayStation is like they've got Naughty Dog, they've got Media Molecule, they've got Polyphony Digital, San Diego Studio, Santa Monica Studio, Valkyrie, like that made God of War. Like their IPs are way better.
This is that jockeying for position that they've been doing since the PS2.
Yeah.
Like Xbox, the first Xbox came out and it never could catch up to the PS2. The PS2 was just a better console. The 360 finally, and then with the PS3, and that was such a debacle on the part of Sony that Microsoft managed to surge ahead. But at the same time, they made some boneheaded moves by letting Bungie go, doing a bunch of other weird stuff, and not quite knowing where they wanted to go. And then when they came out with the Xbox One and the PS4, Microsoft literally and proverbially shat the bed. First with Kinect is integral to Xbox One until 9 months in, and it's not really integral. Yeah. And then the whole can't share games thingy. And in fact, it was another discussion I was having with somebody this weekend when they were like, who remembers the PlayStation commercial where they had the CEO of fucking Sony go, here's how you share games on PlayStation 4.
Yeah, that was at their E3.
Yeah, and they just completely blew it with the Xbox One. And they've been playing catch up with Sony. Now, there was a part of me that felt that because of what Game Pass was doing, that Microsoft was eventually going to get out of the console business. And actually, this kind of leads back to this. I have a feeling Microsoft's getting out of the console business. Everything you can play on Xbox, you can play on PC. There are no more Xbox exclusives.
Well, it's Xbox and PC exclusive. Windows exclusive, actually. That's the brand synergy.
But anybody can install Windows on any box they want to put it on, and it's fine.
Yeah.
My point is they don't need the console division anymore. Not really.
Yeah, they do. And here's why. It is still much cheaper to go out and purchase an Xbox, especially this generation of Xbox, and you can get the non-disc version of the Xbox much cheaper, put it in front of your kid, and they are up playing a game in 4K after some download time, versus the admittedly $4,000 gaming rig that I have to the right, and the $3,500 render machine that I used to broadcast this on. But
one of my
you
favorite
can't
things
play
to
in
do,
4K
though,
otherwise.
My point was, but you used to be able, now part of this is that the price for parts has gone through the roof because of the scalpers and the crazy people. Because one of my favorite things to do is look up builds that people would come up with, where it was like, and this, I saw this a bunch during the Xbox One PS4 era, was, can you build a PC that will outperform an Xbox One and a PS4 for the same price? And the answer is unequivocally, yes, you could at that time with the parts that were available pre-pandemic.
You cannot anymore.
You cannot do that anymore. That is true. I'll grant you that.
Oh, you really, all right. So here's the thing about that too, is you could, in theory, have built one that outperformed it back in the day. But you, and you're a father, and Caleb, you're a dad. Like, you know, the minute that thing breaks, you're going to have a child coming to you and being like, hey, it's not working. What's wrong with it? I don't know. It's not working.
It's convenience.
Yeah.
A console, whether it's Xbox, whether it's PlayStation, whether it's Switch, a Game Boy, it's a convenience package.
See,
it's a thing that works, and you don't have to try to do it yourself.
But see, you bring up a good point, and this was why my daughter has a Switch, and why my wife was on her 3DS for years. Nintendo is different than Sony and Microsoft, and they have very, very strategically and very intentionally said, we are not competing with Xbox and Sony.
True. Fair
we
point.
don't care anymore. When I go buy a Switch cartridge and I stick it in the Switch, it works. Right? Nintendo is building some great product, and I'm really happy with what they've done with the Switch. I'm kind of glad they're printing money again. That's nice for them, right? Because the Wii U is such a debacle. But their stuff just works.
It does, but they need more than 4 games for the damn Switch that work.
And I don't disagree with you there. They've got like 5.
Yeah.
It's freaking Mario Kart, Smash, Zelda, Mario Maker, and Super Mario.
Yeah,
it's a very different design philosophy to the
100%.
the entertainment end product. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, and Animal Crossing.
Yes.
But the point I was trying to make, which I think is still fair, is that you can 100% build a computer, but then it's way more complicated. I can't build a computer. I'm not smart enough to do that, but I can go buy an Xbox.
And if it breaks, you know how to go replace an Xbox.
Exactly.
Or if they throw a controller through the roof or whatever, you know how to replace a controller. Like,
right. It's
yeah.
So if Microsoft is saying we want to get out of the hardware business and focus on like the experience and the properties, I'm not smart enough to know what that means. But I don't know if that's like is that going to eliminate part of their target audience, part of their market?
Absolutely. You got the Madden players in the world alone, right? Play on Xbox.
That's the one I was forgetting, because it's the Madden argument that I always make. People are like, why does Madden sell every year? Because there's a new batch of college freshmen every year who are away from home and go buy Madden to play with their buddies in the dorm. And that's why it will continue to sell 30 million copies a year. Because there's a new batch of college freshmen that want the latest stuff in Madden.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, gaming is still a very social experience. Even with all the first person, even with a solo play experience.
Yes.
Most games nowadays it's like solo is an add-on.
Well,
you use solo to get to that multiplayer.
Even in the indies, though, you're seeing it in the indies where Risk of and Joe is in the chat. They play Risk of Rain too all the time. That is a co-op game. Project Zomboid, which they keep trying to get me into and stuff like that. It could be played solo, but it is boring. I don't like the game. It's boring, but it is better when you have a bunch of people trying to work together to survive the zombie apocalypse, right? So it's like, like it's even happening in the indies because of the software packages are much more readily available.
Mm-hmm. And frankly, it's always been like that. I mean, even if we go back in time to the arcades and you're playing Pac-Man, it's still a social experience of you're standing around watching someone do something. You've got your quarter on the dashboard to play next. You're trying to beat a score or watch how someone clears a screen or a map. That hasn't changed in the industry ever.
True.
It's just how we interact with each other has changed. And I think that's probably a huge driving force behind all of these buyouts and conglomerations. The industry is changing. We game in our pockets nowadays.
Yeah.
So they're trying to do something to keep up with how we're evolving to interact with each other, how technology is evolving. That's got to be a foundational component to all of this.
Strag makes a very good comment too about the console discussion that we were having. He said, space for consoles is much easier. It's, this, right? And your TV that you already have because you've got Netflix or a box or whatever to do, versus you guys don't. I don't have a camera behind me. The setup that I have to run this show and game on is ridiculous. But there's a lot of gamers out there that have multiple screens and a big ass box and things like to do it properly.
I don't know any PC gamer that doesn't have at least 2 monitors.
Hell, do you still have 3 on yours?
No, when I left corporate land, I cut.
You got rid of 1, so you're down to 2.
I was down to 2.
Only 2.
Only 2. You pleb.
I was, and Sean's right. Like up until like May of this year, I had the 3 monitor bank on my desk in my office. So we come back to EA and talk about the shitty part.
The EA portion?
Bobby. Yeah. Sorry, Activision.
You mean Activision? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Shit on Bobby Kotick, please.
So Bobby Kotick, sadly, everyone.
Let's pour one out for him. He's going to be poor after this. He's without a job.
After he's laid off in 2023, he will walk away with a $390 million payout.
That's peanuts.
And so this is the part where I have less issue. Like some people talk about corporate conglomeration and being bad, things that with the video game industry and with this acquisition, I don't think Microsoft is anywhere. I think they're going to control maybe 7% of the market. That's why I know it's going to sail past the regulators. There's too many other big corporations out there that control huge swaths of the market. But I think that Bobby Kotick should be leaving with a boot.
A square foot up his behind? Yeah.
Yeah. And possibly tarred and feathered. Kind of on the fence. I might settle for paper cuts right there. Right there.
That's a hell of from getting a swift kick in the behind to a couple of paper cuts. Like there needs to be a gradient.
Paper cuts here though. Right in there.
Paper cuts right there, and he still has to use he still has to wash his hands a lot. Mm-hmm. So that, they're clean cuts, but man, do they sting.
$390 million. Caleb, you want to tell everybody what you said in the pre-show about this?
No one needs that much money. That's stupid. That's a stupid amount of money. And what does this guy do? He sits behind a desk.
Yeah.
What? $390 million.
Yeah. To leave, by the way, he's getting fired technically.
That's what he gets for being fired.
Or retiring, I guess.
We're not talking about his previous compensation or what does he get paid now.
That's to leave the company. We're only talking about
what the check they will cut him to walk out the door.
Yeah.
I don't get a check if I quit my job. Especially if there's been some shenanigans going on.
Well, and that's the one that kills me is that, and I know that they had to do this to sign the deal. So from Microsoft's perspective, the thing to mention is to say is that like Activision Blizzard is not going to continue as a company by itself anymore. It's going to report directly into Phil Spencer. And I have a sneaking suspicion, and this is just me knowing some of the industry, Phil's going to clean house. He does not take the tech bro perspective on some of these things.
I wanted to touch on this, and let's come back to that in a second. Because Kotick, I think we all agree, failed. Like, all this came to light, and then we can talk about the subject that we were actually going to talk about in the beginning, which is Activision has been fired very quietly until it came out. I think it was Jason Schreier, who, by the way, is a great games journalist.
Schreier has been attacked a lot, and he, for no reason, he's fantastic. Yeah. This is coming from a former journalist. Like, dude's got his shit together.
There are some times where Schreier has kind of put his foot in his mouth, and I'll grant that.
Yeah.
But his reporting on all this stuff is been top notch. It came out earlier this week, which is again why we were going to talk about Activision today, that they very quietly have been firing people who were related to that sexual harassment probe. They had fired 40 and fired 36, disciplined another 40, but they haven't said why. Now, some of the reporting indicates that it might be some of the people that were conducting the harassment, in which case, good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's been a lot of walkouts, there's been a lot of other stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if some of these were retaliatory.
Yeah.
These folks weren't gonna clean house. Kotick knew about it the whole time. So, for the chat, for anybody to know, the reason the SEC started investigating was this. If Bobby Kotick and the board knew that all this was going on all the way back to 2018, 2019, and it could be proven, and it wasn't disclosed to the shareholders, it's a federal crime. Because this kind of information about these kind of investigations at senior management levels and things like that must be disclosed to the shareholders so that they can react accordingly.
Yeah.
And what the SEC is accusing Kotick and the board of doing is not that they knew about all this and that they didn't tell the shareholders and didn't disclose it to the public, which as a publicly traded company is against the law.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm at paper cuts, because he should be in jail. Because I'm pretty sure they knew the whole time.
I mean, you don't go through some of those things, and Kotick especially is one of those people that is big on appearances. And he's been asked very directly, why did you sell the company? And he was basically saying this has nothing to do with the controversy and the calls for him to step down and yada, yada, yada. And...
shake his head from his undisclosed location in Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a different hat. It might be a different location.
It's still an undisclosed location until you tell me otherwise. I think you're in the Ukraine.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting that, like, and I know that, like I said, from Microsoft's point of view, they get the talent that will be left over and maybe even be able to acquire the talent that left Activision Blizzard and work in a different studio than Raven Software and the ones that are problematic under the Activision Blizzard banner. And I'm very interested to see how much that plays into effect with the other developers and stuff like that out there, because there's a good chance. I mean, these are like, when you work in game development and stuff like that, it's a very special set of skills. Like, you don't go and just become, like, you can work in VFX, you can work in the movie industry, but you're going to work in entertainment if you've been doing it for a long time, because that's the industry, you know. It's the setup from a producers to the line producers and everybody like that. Like, it's the corporate culture that you know, or the team culture that you know. So, you know, when you hear about, especially EA shutting down a bunch of studios and stuff like that, and you see on Twitter and stuff like that, of people like trying to get these other folks like hired on at other studios, you know, it's because that's the skill set they know, and that's the portfolio that they have. It's a creative endeavor. You know, every video game job application that's out there says must have shipped a AAA game or must have shipped this number of AAA games or whatever, right? That's the portfolio. It doesn't matter if you're the writer, the VFX, the motion people, the soundtrack folks, the texture renderers, like, it's a portfolio in a creative entertainment industry. And so I'm interested to see how much of Microsoft can try to at least build back some of that credibility once they get rid of Kotick and some of the other board members. Because as far as I understand, none of the board from Activision Blizzard is actually going to be on the board. They actually just showed the new Xbox, like what the reporting structure will look like.
Yep. So, again, going to toss it over to Caleb. Again, because Microsoft's such an old company and because they're so entrenched, again, they're kind of the okay boomer of the tech industry. Do you think that their entrenched HR structures and their other stuff helps fix some of these problems?
You'd think so. Maybe. I mean, HR can be a real messy team, depending on the extent of their power and authority, and if their mandate is to just protect the company or actually do what's right. We're somewhere in the middle. You'd think, though, with something this big, that they are going to really strictly enforce that kind of zero tolerance, no nonsense. Let's get out all the people that either were responsible or were on the fringe of it, so that we can say we're not tolerating any of this. We are a better company. I don't know.
And actually, it brings up the idea, too, because there's been a ton of this talk. And I think, Caleb, you brought it up earlier about, and on this program a few times, we've talked about how prophetic Disney Plus is and how much of a value that is right now, especially as you look at, like, Netflix just raised their damn prices again. And you look at how much content you get from, like, a Disney Plus. It's like there is an upside to the consumer for these conglomerates. And Game Pass already is a really pretty good deal in the gaming world. Like, you get a lot of value out of it. And I kind of wonder if that's where some of this is going to go in the long run, and if that is enough to win back customer trust. Because there's a lot of talk about, like, the metaverses and things like that with all these big companies, which then kind of triggers to me is like, what the hell is Facebook in all of this? And why didn't they acquire Activision Blizzard? Because I'm very interested to know if they're actually going to make a play or not in all of this. Because they're like the only other company that hasn't jumped in. And they have the Oculus, right? The Oculus is theirs. So
they do.
Yeah, I think Oculus is tied directly to them.
It is. I'm thinking about, like, kind of what Caleb was saying earlier, and now what you're bringing up with Facebook. I don't think Facebook's positioned for it right now, because, again, it's the same reason why most people still don't have VR setups. So, like Strike said earlier in the thing, like, everybody's got a TV in their living room, so console's easy. You can just throw it on a mantle and you're good to go. Like, VR, even more so than like a PC, like, you gotta, like, clear some space and, like, make sure the furniture's not there. Did you put the dog away so they don't run in the middle of your legs while you're trying to beat Saber? Like, it's still kind of a niche. I would say VR is still very niche.
And it's a very different type of gaming experience.
Yeah.
You can sit down and play Mario or Call of Duty or a racing game or anything. You can pick up the controller and figure it out. The experience of putting on goggles and acclimating yourself to that type of virtual interaction only appeals to a small group. And you have to be willing to kind of take that leap. The benefit of a console game is pretty much that it's so common in the zeitgeist, anybody can sit down and play something even if they're not a gamer. but it also appeals to that very high-end specialized gamer in the same package. VR stuff is so out there, and it's also a very different type of gaming experience. You're doing that simulation, you're doing that Beat Saber. I want to sit down and play Zelda. I can't do that on a VR goggle right now.
Right.
The only mainstream game that was VR capable that I almost went and bought VR goggles for was when Star Wars Squadrons came out last year. And I was like, I want to be able to like look down and see my legs in a cockpit.
Sure.
In an X-Wing. Like, I almost did it, but I didn't. Because you're right, Caleb. Like, it's very niche. Like, you had to be kind of in a certain mindset to get into it.
I mean, if I can play Pokemon in VR, game changer. But we're not there.
We're not there.
Speaking of which, I really would like a new Pokemon style game. That's not crap. That would be great. I actually wouldn't mind Pokemon in VR. Come on. You know what, Nintendo? You already have the Switch is not a great game console because of the two Joy-Cons on the side. Bring back the Wii remote with the Switch console and just give me some goofy ass goggles to put slide my Switch into for Pokemon in VR.
I am now convinced after watching a Smash tournament, this big one that was at the store last week, I am fucking convinced that they did that intentionally. Because do you know what is a huge thing right now is the old GameCube controllers.
Yeah. I have them just for Smash. I have them just for Smash, yeah.
Yep. Like, I'm like, how many GameCube controllers are out there still? I'm like, you guys are still making GameCube controllers. You don't give a shit about the Joy-Con. Like, you want to sell Switch Pro, and GameCube controllers, and that's it.
Yep.
Okay.
They have them wired and wireless for your Smash. For your Smash needs.
Xbox has made the big acquisitions. They bought Bethesda. Now they've bought Activision Blizzard. What does Sony do to respond?
Keep selling PS5s because they're still outselling the Xbox One X.
Even though you can't get either one.
They are outselling. That is the thing. They're outselling. God of War just came to PC, and that sold really well. They are also making the leap into PC market. I believe Square Enix is still part of, or Square Enix still part of, or are they separate?
No, they're a separate studio.
Okay, because Final Fantasy XIV has had its own resurgence in that side of the world as well.
And that's a PC.
And that's a PC
thing,
exclusive, by the way. I don't think you can play that one on console. You sure as hell wouldn't want to. Let's put it that way. So I think they stand their ground at the moment because they have the better IP that sell the most, especially single player games.
Like, does Sony go out and buy Ubisoft now?
So Ubisoft is also another one of those places that have a ton of toxic issues going on. That's why I
brought it up.
Yeah, no, that's been one of those things that has been kind of swept under the carpet a lot, is that Ubisoft and especially their CEO has been accused of things even worse than what Kotick and Activision has been accused of. And as far as I'm concerned, Ubisoft kind of a trash company with the C-suite there. I hate to say it, kind of is. And so, yeah, if Sony was to do that and kind of clean house a little bit over there, that'd be a very interesting proposition to have Assassin's Creed be a PlayStation
under
exclusive.
Sony?
Yeah.
Well,
and maybe they could actually do something worthwhile with it.
See, this is why. The French are always a problem.
I would like to apologize to our French viewers out there.
Hey, Ubisoft French. It's the French's fault.
Wow.
We got good food. Good food.
Yeah. Ubisoft might implode. It is actually like they don't have a ton of releases coming out right now. The Division didn't do well. Like
their newest expansion for Valhalla did really well.
Did it? Far Cry 6 did it?
Valhalla, the expansion for Valhalla did well. Valhalla did well. Far Cry 6
did not.
Did not.
Rainbow Six is not. Their best game right now.
That is Ubisoft.
Their best game right now is Just Dance 2022. I mean, don't get me wrong. Far Cry 6 is a great one for Joe and I to mess around in, but their releases lately have not been good. Just not.
Odyssey and Valhalla were both solid games because they leaned into, as opposed to trying to like play it like straight faced, they leaned into the crazy. They were like, fuck it, we don't care anymore, right? We're gonna have fun with this. And when they stop, it's kind of like Thor Ragnarok. Right? When you stop taking yourself seriously, right, and trying to be like epic, right? You can have some fun with it. That was the thing that differentiated Thor Ragnarok, was they were like, all right, we're done. We're gonna do something super metal.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a wolf, and he's going to leap off a thing, and we'll play a bunch of metal songs. And that's what they've done with Assassin's Creed. They were just like, we tried to play it straight for a while. It worked for a minute. We're done. We're just, fuck it. There's mythical creatures and weird shit, and fuck you. Oh, yeah, and the other, Watch Dogs 3 did bad, too.
Yeah, Legion was very poor.
Watch Dogs Legion was bad.
Yeah.
And I like Watch Dogs.
I was gonna say, that's coming from a Watch Dogs fan.
Watch Dogs 2 was great. Was amazing. That main character, Marcus. Oh, great. All right. Have we mined the EA well?
You keep saying EA, but it's really Activision Blizzard.
I want to kill EA too.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I mean, they do some shady practices. I'm not gonna lie, but Battlefield. I'm still salty about Battlefield. So I'm just saying, you screwed up.
Copy pasta Madden.
Well, yeah, that's gonna happen. That and FIFA are gonna happen forever. Our last story tonight, because it's also kind of a meaty topic. There was a recent article in Vulture, which is owned by New York Magazine, which was an expose or biography type kind of long, very in-depth article about Joss Whedon. And I believe, well, let me put it this way. It was pitched to me by Alex as, hey, Mallo, I think Joss Whedon is a dickhead. And I'm like, yes, we've established. He's like,
that was the big reveal.
That was the big reveal. But then he was like, but I think he went and took an article with New York Magazine thinking that it was going to do something for his life. And he ended up screwing that up really hard too. And I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. Let's talk about it because it's Whedon, it's sci-fi, it's cool, it's whatever. Then I read the article, or skimmed it more likely, because it's a very long. I'm scrolling for days.
It is.
It is Caleb, a great article.
But Caleb, they did their research, so yeah, Caleb, start us off.
Kick us off. You read the whole thing too.
Yeah. We were talking about this before Chaos Inc. the other day, and I don't understand this article. Like, I don't understand how he thought it was a good thing to say any of the words he said. I don't understand how his publicist said, you did a good job today. Here's a cookie. This was a shit show. But amazing props to the author of this article. Astoundingly well written. I said this before our Chaos Inc. stream the other day in our pre-show chat. Like, this author was very impartial and let the facts speak for themselves. Obviously, there was a lot of very tough topics to cover in this article, and it was done very professionally. But what we got into, and I think what was kind of the driving force of bringing this topic up today, was like, where does this take us down the divorce between creator and creation, which unfortunately is a huge topic nowadays, especially over the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, and it connects with the thing too, and how we bring all of this together. If you couldn't tell, was I mentioned earlier about not playing World of Warcraft because of Activision's Blizzard stuff. I won't play any of that because of all the bullshit that goes on. Because again, I know that the developers and the artists and there's a lot of people at Activision Blizzard that are probably very nice people, probably are the ones being harassed and just want to do their job. But it's hard to continue supporting and playing that. And during that whole thing, That was the argument. Do you support the company and continue to pay and play so that others can have a job? Or do you support with your wallet and not?
Which is really the only way. I mean, we can all tweet happy pappy shit, but really supporting and not supporting with your wallet is the way to do it. On the Whedon article, I'm with you, Caleb. And especially the part where the journalist got to the point where Whedon was told by his publicist that if he got uncomfortable in the moment, say, hey, I need to run off and use the loo, right? So, when your publicist tells you that, if anybody in the chat ever becomes famous, what you don't do is then tell the interviewer that that's what your publicist told you to do after you had already been like, oh, gotta dash off to the loo 3 or 4 times, okay? You keep that to yourself.
Yeah, inside voice. Inside voice.
Because you just killed yourself there. I agree with you. I think it was one of the most professionally written, like, bio pieces I have seen. The author didn't try and make Whedon look good. I'm sure his publicist and him thought this was the start of his grand comeback tour.
Yeah.
It was not, because he borked it all up.
Yeah.
And because the author whose desk this landed on is a real journalist and was going to ask real questions and say, hey, look, this is the stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
What do you have to say for yourself? And she was very direct with him. And all credit to the writer of this piece. I'm with you there.
Leela Shapiro, by the way. Let us not forget Leela Shapiro. That is the author of the piece. She's fantastic senior reporter for New York Magazine.
Yeah.
Just want to put that out there.
Also, by the way, New York Mag always has great Christmas gift guides. They're my go-to.
Oh, yeah, they do. I also want to say that she did so much research that she interviewed Scott Kurtz, which is a comic writer here in Seattle who we've Alex has seen me interact with a lot at cons. Because he, back in the day, before a lot of this stuff came out, made a t-shirt that says Joss Whedon is my master now. And it was designed to be like Jedi Master kind of thing and all like that. Famously also worn by Will Wheaton and all that kind of stuff, because and the piece starts off about elevating somebody to this like godlike status. And even he has a new quote in here, basically, you know, where was he saying? Basically, he was kind of saying, like, you know, we have this tendency to put people, you know, on these pedestals. Yep. And, you know, it's unfortunate when we expect them to be human and we find out they're not godlike creatures. You know?
And it's not even about not being godlike. And the comparison I'm going to make is Weird Al.
Yes.
Okay? And follow me here. It's weird. Weird Al has had a career spanning 4 decades now.
Yep.
Okay? Never once have I heard a whisper of Weird Al sexually harassing the interns at the record studio. Right? Not a hint of it. Okay? Nowhere. There are people, and I love Weird Al, right? There are people who can go through life and not be scumbags. And I think there's a difference between being human. Like when I hear somebody struggles with addiction or they're going through divorce,
right.
or they struggled, that's one thing. Whedon took advantage of people who were under his umbrella.
Yes.
And that's different. I mean, it's not the same thing to me. Right?
Yeah. And the other part of this, to get back to the whole how do we separate the creation from the creator, like where do we draw the line? Here we've got a person who was abusing his power and treating people like shit and doing terrible things, whatever that actual terrible thing is. But then on the other side of the spectrum, we've got people who are saying terrible things. And maybe they didn't treat anybody badly, or abuse their station, but they're taking a terrible political stance or a socioeconomic stance.
We're on the J.K. Rowling run.
Sure.
Right?
Or anybody we've talked about over the past couple of years.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, J.K. Rowling is the easiest.
It's a very topical.
But it's to the point though of like you can have like Whedon is the stereotypical big shot Hollywood director. Like he's the meme. He let himself become the fucking meme. Pardon my French, but like he did. And that kind of stuff doesn't fly. It should have never flown, but it sure as hell doesn't fly in this day and age, thankfully, as it should be going away. And if you're going to act like that, you deserve to get called out on it. Like, plain and simple. Like, you can disagree with people, you can demand, you can insist on the highest quality standards in your films and not be a jackass at the same time.
Yeah.
You can do both things.
The question to me is, does it make you look at something and you're supportive of a thing like Firefly, like Buffy, like the first two Avengers movies, and does it make you pause and go, I really feel different about or don't want to consume this media anymore?
Yeah. I don't think there's an answer. Let me rephrase that. There's a different answer for every person.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, go ahead.
Like Lovecraft. Let's go way back. Let's look at that old literature. Are we not going to read Lovecraft? Are we not going to read Lord of the Rings? Are we not going to read anything from that era of these terrible people? Where do we draw that line?
Yeah.
So one of the lines that I saw drawn, and I'm curious about both your opinion on it, is this. The difference being, Lovecraft is not getting residuals for Shadows over Innsmouth. J.K. Rowling and Joss Whedon are still getting residual checks every time you stream Avengers or buy a Harry Potter related item.
Well, yes and no.
Is there a difference there?
Yes. Well, hold on. It gets a little bit more complicated than that because Joss Whedon does not get cuts of the merchandising from.
He gets
Avengers.
the DGA checks for.
He gets certain DGA checks, but if you go and buy an Avengers doll, for instance, all that money goes to Disney. That's their IP. Harry Potter, on the other hand, I think Rowling does get some.
She does get merchandising.
Now, that was sold to Warner Brothers, who owns the film rights to the movie. So again, is it 6 degrees of but is it 6 degrees of separation, or is it that you're going to be able to kind of?
No, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Like, is there a fundamental difference between, like, and I'll use another one. We'll bring up another one. Arthur C. Clarke, right? Phenomenal sci-fi writer, one of the 3 grandmasters of science fiction. Came out after he died that the reason he was living where he was living is because he was a pedophile.
Yeah.
And he was living in a part of the world where that was okay.
But also, what's the level of infraction we're talking about? Is it that type of sexual abuse and manipulation and grooming people? Is it having a wrong opinion and doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on that opinion about people's gender identities? Is it just having a shitty opinion about the pandemic? Like, there's so many things that get people in trouble nowadays. And do we treat everybody equally regardless, or do we say, well, okay, you didn't screw around with people, so that's not as bad, but you're just an idiot about vaccine?
Now the chat's brought up 2 things. Scale matters, and I would agree with that, right?
Yeah, I can agree.
The only thing I'll say in response to that, to Strag, is that scale is very personal, and I'll come back in a second. And then Bit player brings in current and direct harm inflicted by current actions. And what I think Bit's probably referring to there is J.K. Rowling and her consistent advocacy against trans rights is continuing to do current and direct harm.
Yeah.
Right? As far as scale, again, that scale is going to change. To a trans person, what J.K. Rowling is doing is harmful and dangerous. Whereas what Joss Whedon did is not affecting them directly, right? He was a scumbag to people.
Right.
Yeah. Well, but it's do you take up for the people in the principle of it, right? Because again, I'll go back to the Activision Blizzard comment. I don't know any of the people who work there, but if my actions can in some way hopefully help the situation, then I think you can sleep a little bit better at night. Like, I haven't picked up a Harry Potter thing since all that crap came out. Just my guttural reaction. And I have very knowledgeable about that whole fandom and would love to teach my young one all of that, because the books themselves and the stories that are there on film with Daniel Radcliffe and things like that, which by the way isn't going to be in a Weird Al biopic, which is how this all comes full circle. But like, he's going to play Weird Al in a Weird Al biopic. So there you go.
Which is the Roku exclusive.
Which is why I'll never see it. Fire TV for life. Let's go. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those things of like, your moral compass, and it has to be it's a very nuanced kind of thing, because your moral compass begins and ends whether you feel personally attached to the people that it affects from a sociological perspective. I for one am not trans. I know people who are, and thus I'm offended on behalf of them, because that kind of talk could easily be pointed the other direction to anybody that's LGBTQ. And of which then I will start putting up middle fingers when it's pointed at me, because I don't give a shit. You can attack me all day long. I don't care. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you look at it and you bring the degrees of separation, which is part of the discourse, especially in this country, of being able to put up this imaginary wall between yourself and some other, which has been the start of world wars, for crying out loud. It's very easy to just ignore certain problems until they become too big, and then it takes even more to walk it back. And I'm not saying you can police morality or even police thought and things like that.
No.
Because that's never going to happen. But at the same time, you cannot encourage it. And while me not buying anything from Harry Potter or whatever like that does not necessarily directly hurt J.K. Rowling, because she's already made her money, right? She won't make residuals off of anything that I have, but she's already made her money. So it's kind of like paying Bobby Kotick. Go the fuck away. You've made your point. Go the fuck away.
It's the burning your Kaepernick jersey concept. Like, he already made his money off you buying his jersey.
Right. And at the end of the day, you're right. We can't police morality. We can't police ethics. But
we can try.
But you can encourage it.
What we can do is try to instill a better sense of understanding morality and ethics in our new generation.
Yes.
Like, what we are seeing here in real time over the past 2 years, 5 years, whatever, is such a dramatic and dynamic evolution and awareness about these issues. All of this shit has been happening for the entire span of human existence. It's just that the news cycle is so instantaneous nowadays, and communication is instantaneous and widespread. We know much more about it, and we can all talk about it much easier.
Yep.
So the key to our survival going forward is to be able to talk to our children and say, hey, Harry Potter's really cool. the person who wrote it has some really dumb ideas.
Right.
Don't be like that person, but you can enjoy a fun fairy.
Yeah.
Because again,
So
do you look at it from the perspective of I'm not supporting J.K. Rowling, or are you not supporting Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson, and because they also get the same checks?
Those are slightly different. I'm basically on the same kind of boat as you are, right? There are authors that I like that are problematic and weird. Some of which I'm able to separate, some of which I'm not. Like, I have a hard time reading Clark now. I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
You son of a bitch. Like, why did you have to be this? Right? Whereas, like, you know, others I kind of get around it. What I do see a lot of, though, is a lot of people who are trying to, and what frustrates me is when I see people shame people. And I'm like, look, you can say don't support this person going forward. Let's use J.K. Rowling, right? Look, am I running out to see the next Harry Potter movie? No, because she has tainted it for me, right? Mm-hmm. But if somebody goes out and sees the movie, I'm not going to immediately assume they're a transphobe.
Right.
Right.
Okay, but I see some of that now, right? I see people acting that way, right? You know, and that concerns me, right?
Well, and yeah. No, go ahead, Caleb.
I think at the end of the day, we have to define what hurting other people means. Because you can think whatever you want and you can do whatever you want, but when your thoughts and actions start hurting other people is where we have to draw the line as humans. And does hurting people mean I'm hitting you in the face, or I'm abusing you physically or mentally, or does it mean I'm shaming you, or I'm calling you out when it doesn't need to be called out? Like, how do we define, and how are we take responsibility for, and how do we be selfless instead of selfish? So that's how we see the change.
I think there's a difference between calling out somebody who votes for a homophobic or transphobic candidate in a local election, say for your state congressperson, and somebody who goes to see a Harry Potter movie.
Yeah.
And I fear that we're losing the ability to draw those lines. Because so much of our discourse happens in 240 characters or in 3-minute TikToks.
Mm-hmm. It all has to be boiled down to a point without the nuance.
Right.
I think nuance is missing a lot from...
So let's come back to Whedon. What Whedon did was shitty. And
he's a bad person.
He is a bad person. And he hurt people. Conversely, he's not going out there going, I think all gay people need to be banned, like Orson Scott Card. Right? So, now while, again, kind of bring this all back, while Whedon thought this was going to be part of his redemption tour, obviously it's not, because he hasn't made amends for the things that he's done in the past.
Correct.
Yeah, he's doubling down on the fact that he did nothing wrong.
Right. But he's not actively out there hurting entire classes of people.
Right.
I don't know what you're trying to get at with that one.
There's no... I'm trying to find, like, where are we drawing the distinctions?
I mean, it feels, to be honest with you, it feels like from reading through the article, Whedon hates all women, except the ones that he's boning. I mean, let's call a spade, right? So yeah, in some ways, yeah, he does hate a class of people. You know? And so that's that's like, you know, you can talk scale, you can talk however you want to do it. We've been talking about it being nuanced, and more on an individualized basis, right? You know, and what that does. Because if you dig in, you're going to disagree with a lot of creators out there. You know, but where you draw the line between disagreeing with them on any personal values versus, hey, they've gone and done some harmful shit, is going to be 50 Shades of Grey in the middle. And how far are you willing to step into that gray before you feel uncomfortable, I think is the bit of it. And I think to the larger portion is the nuance in discourse and the understanding of the degrees of separation between yourself and somebody who is very different from you has been broken down much farther. And the 1 minute TikToks and the 240 characters and the Instagram images and things like that and social media. I don't even start about the cancer that is Facebook. Like all of that stuff only fuels one or the other, because it's all about the clicks of what's the most, even Reddit will serve you up the most controversial posts on purpose, because that's what gets the views from a psychological perspective.
And we've also got that concept of tribal thought. With social media, you're surrounding yourself probably with people that share similar views.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where like you can be part of a marginalized crowd and hate another part of a marginalized crowd.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. I don't know. It's one of those things where it is not an easy subject for it at all. But I think that we should have those discussions
we need to.
Yeah.
Well, and that was going to be my next thing. It's like, I'm glad we're having this conversation with people and in a chat and in a public forum, because I think the conversations need to be had, as opposed to just not discussing it because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's going to be uncomfortable, and I think
it's okay.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable till you can come to some sort of reasonable discourse. And I say reasonable discourse like quoting like the forefathers, who were also racist bigots, but still. There's a lot to unpack, especially in America, when it comes to that.
Yeah. So. And it's also tough because of this whole social media soundbite world of communication that we live in. It's very challenging to have an open conversation.
Yeah.
Because so much of how we communicate is a statement and then arguing about that statement.
Yep.
And conversations are really hard. And most people don't like having difficult conversations.
Yeah.
I don't like having difficult conversations. But also, like, I think we've also kind of forgotten that sometimes it's okay to have a conflict of conversation. It's okay to have a debate. It's okay to be on two different sides of a topic or on multiple sides of a topic and talk through it without jumping at each other's throats with a knife, because that's the only way we learn. That's the only way we grow as people. And communication is kind of working against us to do that nowadays.
I find that a lot of things, and I invite, if folks would like to come onto this podcast and on this live stream, find us on the Discord, add us on Twitter, so we can have this conversation and more conversations like this, because we do this weekly. Because I want to have more and more voices on the show for this exact reason, right? Not every week is going to be a deep philosophical discussion like this, but we can touch on certain themes. Certainly we touched on certain themes. That's one of the things we like to do. Even when we were reviewing Book of Boba Fett, we were touching on certain themes that didn't quite sit well with all the panelists, and rightfully so. And that's okay, right? We want to talk about them and where's the line on some of these things too, and I think that's important. We've certainly had we've had a bit of a diverse group of folks on the show already. We want to continue to be even more diverse as we go forward with it, so we can continue to have these kinds of conversations. Because and one of the things that we've done with IDNTECO and just as creators in general is that we get to chance to reflect society back in the work that we make.
Hopefully.
Well, it's society. No matter what we do, no matter what we say and what we do, it is a reflection of society back into our work, whether we are consciously writing something to make a point or if it just comes out that way. And being able to have that, honest and open conversation, either through the work that we create, especially in the game and in the associated works, or even just in our live podcasts and stuff like that. Like, those are important parts of the discussion. And the more folks that we have in here talking and going forward with it, the better. So
I agree with that.
yeah, it's both silly tamales and deep philosophical stuff. I mean, it does. We've definitely had a few moments of that in both shows so far. Because there's just I don't know if it's probably not pinned, but again, Cyberpunk is not just cool neon clothes.
No, yeah, it's
a lot of philosophical stuff in there.
Yep.
And we dive deep into it on purpose.
But if y'all would like a tamale as we close, Weird Al was quoted yesterday after the news about Daniel Radcliffe playing him, that Weird Al said, at the end of Daniel Radcliffe's career, this is the role he will be remembered for. He's played Weird Al. Okay, so there's your tamale, chat.
I love it.
There's your tamale. We're coming back to.
We came back around. We got it. Yep.
We're gonna give you the last one again. Weird Al. This will be the role he's remembered for, is playing me.
I love it. It's funny.
I can't wait to see him in that wig. I'm excited.
I was actually, if you click on, if there's a link in our chat right now, and like the picture of the two of them sitting next to each other is, it's eerie. Like how much he could just shave a little bit of the beard and just either grow out the hair and make it curly, or get the wig on. And holy crap!
I thought it was really interesting casting. When I heard it, I was like, that's who they're gonna get. Here's the other thing, and this is why. So this is what weirded me out. Weird Al is 6 foot.
Yeah, he's very tall. He's a tall man.
He is 6 foot. Daniel Radcliffe is 5'5".
He's a very short man.
I'm like,
it's gonna be
next to each other at the premiere, and let's see how this works out.
It's gonna be like the Hobbits and Isengard. They're gonna put Gandalf on his knees so they all look. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Foreground and background.
Exactly. Yeah, how they shot Elf. Offset and yeah.
Platform heels. I don't know. There's part of me that thinks this isn't a real project, that it's actually just one giant troll for like a music video that Al's gonna do.
Al would do that. That's the thing. Like,
yeah.
And that's my point, is that you just don't know, because he's a weird guy.
It would be great if it was like an actual movie, but the movie was all a joke. Like everything in the movie was.
Look, Weird Al made UHF. Okay, if you ever want to know anything about it, like, I don't know.
Still a damn good movie.
It's still a really. It's a fantastic movie. It's like.
I think it's available on Prime Video if you want to watch it.
That's true.
I'm looking right now. I think it's available on Prime Video right now if you'd like to watch it.
I don't know.
I grew up on Weird Al. I love the guy still.
Well, and again, it's another one of it's one of those ones where, it's one of those ones where you never hope that anything bad ever comes out about it, because you don't want to believe it to be.
I'm saying, please, God, don't let all the gods in the world and space. Yeah. Please don't let us find out that after Weird Al dies that he was like diddling bunny rabbits or something. Like,
oh my God.
I actually kind of think if you ever met his wife Suzanne, I think she would probably murder him, though. To be quite honest, like he's one of those guys that I think married a very headstrong. She's a marketing executive for 20th Century Fox. So that leads credence to the fact that like maybe this is actually going to happen, because like she's got some connections in the industry and stuff like that. But I honestly think that other than being strange, other than being strange, wearing Hawaiian shirts and making music videos and stuff like that, so far, knock on wood, nothing, maybe his band has been with him for like 50 years or something shit like that too.
I've only got like 2 or 3 like idols left that haven't been wrecked for me. So
I never want to meet him.
Never meet him.
I'm never going to meet him.
Nope.
And that's from a 20-year career of meeting many of the people that I loved. So we'll leave it at that. All right, Caleb, if they want to learn more about your work, your projects, where can they find you?
I am on the socials at the Caleb G. Of course, I'm here on the IDNTECO streams with Chaos Inc. You can also hear some of my stuff over on the RPG Academy. I've been on some very old games. We have been playing 13th Age on their Twitch stream. We are trying to bring that back for an epic 5-episode conclusion. So that should be coming up soonish. And then we might be bringing back an old favorite game, and I'll be stepping back into the GM chair for that one.
Let's go.
You need something, Michael. We need to get another IDNTECO game over there for you guys, even just a one shot.
Yep.
I think we can make that happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alex,
So yeah, that's me.
other than this show, where can people find you? 7 days a week.
Find me at the Gamers Heaven store in Linwood, Washington. That's where you can find me these days. You can find me on all the socials at Alex the Humanoid, where I opine and do silly things in videos. And of course, you know,
He kind of plans them out these days too. I watched him do it yesterday.
I'm doing like 3 campaigns right now because it's just
Yeah.
a lot.
Hey,
going
and I'll
on.
be there for the IDNTECO live one. It's still tomorrow night, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Are you
I'll be
coming?
there for
Good.
the IDNTECO one tomorrow night. Hey,
Yay.
IDNTECO played live at Gamers
Yes.
Heaven every Thursday. So
6
I'll be
to
there
10
tomorrow
PM
night.
Tomorrow.
I gotta wash an
Yay.
IDNTECO shirt, so I actually look like I belong there. But I'm there
Well,
as
there you
well
go.
sometimes.
Yes. And so come see us there. That's pretty much me.
Yep. Go support it. It's a really fun store. We had a lot of fun putting things together. And again, my name is Mallo. You can find me at the Mallo Man everywhere, literally just about everywhere, including outer space soon. That's it for this week's show. If you want to catch up on everything else, again, our YouTube channel, just search IDNTECO there. Come back not this Monday, but next Monday will be the next episode of Chaos Inc. And until then, we will see you on the socials, and come join our Discord. We have a lot of fun in there too. We do a lot of mini painting and all sorts of good, fun, geekery stuff there. So come check it out. Until then, stay safe, mask up, go get your vaccine and your booster if you are able. Wildling is in the chat, so she would like me to remind you to drink your water and take your vitamins. And just be good to one another, okay? We've had enough. We had a very long discussion about it tonight, but honestly, all of it can be solved if you just be good to one another, okay? Love you all. We'll see you again next week, all right? Mwah! Good night, everybody.
Good night.